What's up, guys? We played Dungeons and Dragons tonight, or rather, five people did, and I ran the game. And I wanted to make a video about it to talk about what kind of experience that we all had tonight. There were five players. There were five players and myself, the DM. Uh, we had Kurt, the human barbarian. We had Crack, the human warlock. We had Sir Reginald Quentin Watson, the human rogue, who is level 3, while the rest of the characters are level 1. We have Desmond Sean, the bronze dragonborn cleric, and we have Lighart, the gold dragonborn paladin. The evening started out with the five heading out from the capital city where the campaign takes place, called Trenwell, heading out west to the Wildlands to explore, meet up with some kobold allies that they have. And these kobolds are a blue-scaled tribe of kobolds hiding out in a cave, made their cave base not too far from the human settlement. And on the first adventure that any of these characters in this campaign world had, it was Sir Reginald Quentin Watson and his companion Shannon, the cleric wizard multiclass human combo. And what they did was earn in a trial by combat the right to represent the kobold tribe. And that was interesting because it forged an alliance between the kobolds nearby and the humans sitting nearby, because the kobolds had been stealing gold for the trove of their dragon queen. The egg was about to hatch, and the party decided that instead of using kill tactics, they wanted to diplomance things, and so they did. They won the trial by combat, and they made the kobolds their allies, and made a pact between them and the city. So now the kobolds are allied with the city of Trenwell and the humans who live there, among other races. And all this took place before tonight. So when the level 1 players and Sir Reginald, level 3, went to the kobold caves tonight, they already knew the people there. At least Sir Reginald did. The kobolds had an interesting reaction to seeing dragonborn, specifically bronze and gold dragonborn, in their caves. The kobolds had a negative reaction. I need to flip the other way here. The kobolds had a negative reaction upon seeing Sean, Desmond Sean, the bronze dragonborn cleric, who was actually, ironically, was the person who wanted to talk to them. And the gold dragonborn paladin was the one they did want to talk to, the one they lied with, and the one they asked to defend them from the bronze dragonborn cleric. So you have the Azur's blue-scaled kobold tribe being afraid of the two good guy player characters playing dragonborns, bronze and gold. And they do this because the races of dragons are at war. There are different races of dragons aligned with good and with evil, and the good races against the evil races, and the blue are on the side of good, and the bronze dragons are on the side of evil. The bronze dragons have a king called Elifaraz, and they've taken over most of the lands to the west. And the players find that out tonight as they start to ask the kobolds why their response to a bronze paladin, a bronze dragonborn cleric, is such. And this is the first time dragonborn players have arrived in my world. It's not the first time the dragonborns have been part of the world, but it's the first time the dragonborn player characters have played in my campaign. It was very interesting to have the first enemies that I place in them, which is typically kobolds. It's a game called Dungeons and Dragons. I like new players to experience the thrill of facing level 1 enemies like kobolds that tie the dragon aspect of the game together. And so when these level 1 dragonborn PCs encounter these kobolds, they share a dragon connection through them. And the kobolds tell the PCs about the dragon queen who hatched, which Sir Reginald was present for, and the PCs are intrigued. What winds up happening in this course of this discourse is the players make a treaty and decide that the gold dragonborn paladin wants to help the bronze dragonborn cleric win the favor of those kobold tribes. They seem to have decided that since the kobolds are nearby and friendly to them, they want to make a pact with them. So what they decided to do was ask them about how to prove themselves. And so the blue kobold chieftain, Aranon, announces that if they want to win his favor, they have to win the trial of combat. So the trial of combat begins. It's the same way that Sir Reginald Quentin Watson and Shannon the cleric wizard proved their worth to the Kobold tribe, and it was a trial by combat. And this time it was 1-on-1. The rules are the same. It's a 30-foot circle, and if the participant steps out of the circle, they're ruled out. It's a 1-on-1 combat, so if either one is placed outside of the ring, the fight ends. Or if the fight ends, if one of the party goes unconscious. With a 1-on-1 fight, the rules are pretty simple, but I was interested about how the cleric player decided to go about doing this. The cleric player decided that since the kobolds, the rule of the fight, were to place the enemy outside the ring and the kobolds were smaller, the cleric decided that the easiest way to win the fight, and without hurting anyone, was to take the kobold, lift him up, and place him outside the ring. So I had the player rolling an athletics check to make a grapple, and had the kobold making the acrobatics, and the player win, the player succeeded, and the kobold failed, and that meant the kobold was being dragged by the player. And the player had enough room, had enough movement to drag the kobold to the end of the ring. And I didn't want my player to win the trial of combat in one turn and leave ambiguity about it, and also cheapen the victory. So I gave the kobold a chance to roll to avoid being dropped, because the cleric was going to drop him outside the ring and rule him out and bring him out according to the rules and win that way. So what I did was I gave the kobold a chance to roll for a contested counter grapple to hold on, because the cleric was going to drop them. So the kobold succeeded, and the player failed, and the kobold clawed on. On the kobold's turn, the kobold scrambled over the dragonborn's body and wound up in the other side of the ring, and it, with a little "come at me," invited the dragonborn to come at him once more. Well, the dragonborn player's tactics again prevailed on picking up the kobold and dropping upside the ring, since he had placed himself 5 feet away from the ring's edge, which succeeded this time. The kobold failed his saving throw, the player succeeded, and the victory was won. This secured in the minds of the kobolds that not all bronze dragonborn are evil. And in fact, that the dragonborns they encountered today, including the bronze dragonborn they were previously afraid of, could be considered a hero. So, with an alliance between the kobolds and Trenwell secured, not only that, an alliance between the dragonkin of the kobolds and the dragonborn secured, the players set off to the northwest to examine the northwestern part of the country, out past where they had previously explored. Now, previously, Sir Reginald Quentin Watson had been with his companion Shannon and explored the northwest and found a dreadrot stump. It's an old tree, dead, killed, and with a rot fungus taking over the top of it, and they sought out an entrance to underground as they were attacked by giant centipedes around the stump, and they sought out to the northwest an entrance to find whatever was underground, and they found it, and they found a cave encountered by hobgoblins and goblins, hobgoblins and goblins, and a slime monster. And the players cleared their way through the hobgoblins, and cleared their way through the goblins to the hobgoblins, and the hobgoblin was a hobgoblin priest, so he had the priest stat block instead of the hobgoblin block. And the hobgoblins were serving as their acolytes, and they had the acolyte block instead of the goblin block. And this way, it was an interesting, unique fight that only those particular players got to have. In the course of this fight, the previous fight in there, the hobgoblin priest managed to use Raise Dead because he's a 5th level spellcaster, meaning he's used 3rd level spells. So the priest casts Raise Dead on one of the goblins that died. As the heroes come in to fight them and kill the goblins one by one, he's able to step up into range and raise the goblin from the dead as a zombie. So now the heroes are encompassed, this side and this side. Zombies and goblin here, and hobgoblin and goblins here. So they're sandwiched, and they fight their way out and barely survive. And all that's happened before. And they find out that these priests and acolytes are followers of a dark god known as Shar. Shar is the god of chaos and evil, and worshipped by all those who are not good aligned. And on this hobgoblin priest's body, they find a weapon called Shar's Touch. It's a +1 mace, and it deals an extra 1d6 necrotic damage if the character using it is not good aligned. If they're neutral or evil aligned, they add the extra damage. I wanted to put that in there as an extra little oomph for the monster, but also put it as a bit of a reward for the players defeating the monster. They get the loot. So all this being out of the way, today's adventure takes place northwest, further out past where they found this cave. They decide to keep exploring and see if they find any more goblins and find out what's going on with the Shar tribe, these worshippers, and try to wipe them out, kill them, and take their loot. So the 5-player party sets out for the goblins and through the wilderness. And the first thing they encounter is a a black charcoal bonfire, what's left of a bonfire, 24 hours, 48 hours before. And they find footprints as they do a survival check to search for tracks. They find footprints in different sizes, small and medium and large. And I told them they find one set of large footprints, one set of medium footprints, and two sets of small footprints, which, as you could probably guess, are a bugbear, a hobgoblin, and two goblins. I wanted them to be goblinoid followers of the same kind of cult, indicating that the activity is still going on out here because these are the wild lands. No human or dragonborn or dwarf or elf or halfling has set foot out here in 200 years. So the players decide that since they found some tracks, they're going to keep tracking them. And the tracks that they found lead off in the northwest. So off they go northward instead of west. Now they're heading east. So as they head east, they see smoke in the horizon. And they think, it's another bonfire. Something else is happening. Let's keep on. As they forge through the forest, I have before them a monster, an encounter with a big cat, a jaguar. And I told them a jaguar is running away from them. And they decide that instead of trying to fight the jaguar, they want to convince the jaguar that they're not a threat. So I told them to roll. So I had the jaguar roll an insight check. And the insight check was either a 15 or lower. It would 15 or lower. It would fail to see that the players didn't want to hurt it. If it was 15 or higher, it would see that the players are not trying to hurt it. It was a 14. So I ruled that the jaguar saw that the players weren't a threat, but also didn't trust them. So the jaguar backed away and ran off again the other direction, back the way they had come. So the players are now wondering, what is the jaguar running from? Let's find out. So the players keep going, and I keep having them roll a d12. And I tell them, when you roll the flat d12, if you roll a 10, you get an easy encounter. If you get an 11, you get a hard encounter. If you get a 12, you get a deadly encounter. 10 medium, 11 hard, and 12 deadly. Well, as you can guess, they rolled 3s, 4s, and 5s. No encounter for them. So finally, by the end of this, when they're encountering the jaguar, I said, screw it. They're going to fight the encounter I had in mind for these two people that I already foreshadowed, with this pack of 4 goblinoids that I already foreshadowed with the footprints. So I said, fine, it's going to happen. So the next thing I rolled on the encounters as they moved through another hour of tracking into the wilderness was a bit of fog rolling in. And I said, suddenly, out of nowhere, seems that wisps of fog cover the ground and shroud them and lightly obscure the area. And the players go, what's this? Someone casting a fog spell? The players deduce that someone is nearby. I also rolled to see what kind of encounter there would be in the area, since I knew there would be a combat encounter, but I didn't want them to get away without having some other kind of encounter, because the combat encounter was planned, the other encounter is a result of their actions. I wanted to very much feel like the world was living. So I rolled for the encounter, and I got a snare trap. So I asked, who's leading the party? And we decided that Sir Reginald Quinton Watson was leading the party. So I said, Sir Reginald Quinton Watson, give me a dexterity saving throw with a DC of 14. I figured 14 is medium, but on the easier side of medium, and as such has a better likelihood of surviving it. And being a low-level adventure with low-level characters, I didn't want to punish them too much. Well, he rolled low, incredibly low. In fact, I think he rolled a 2. And so he failed that. And so I said that he stepped into, he felt the rope snag around his boot, hoist him up into the air, and lift him 10 feet above the ground. And at this point, play stopped. Because the characters, the players rather, started to get distracted. Actually, it happened because I took a break. And what happened when I took a break and came back was the players were talking about other things. And they were thinking about what was obviously about to happen. They were obviously about to get ambushed, but these 4 things they tracked this way. And they'd seen more smoke, and they had seen all this fog coming in, and they knew there was something happening. And they decided that they knew they were going to fight something. They just felt it in their bones that they were going to fight something. And they decided that they were running out of time to play in game in real life, and they decided to let the fight play out. And once the fight was done, they would call it a night. So that's what happened. So the players rolled initiative. We got the map set up. It took a little time, but we did it. Got the map set up with a bugbear, a hobgoblin, and 2 goblins to fight the party of 4 level 1s and a level 3. Well, as it happens, the players pretty much wiped the floor with my goblinoids. So what I ruled was that the bugbear ran into melee with the backliners, the hobgoblin standing back as a caster, making a successful concentration check to keep up his fog cloud spell when attacked. But then the tide of the battle shifted. The warlock, Crack? Need to look up his name. The warlock, Kakra. The warlock, Kakra, cast Tasha's hideous laughter on the hobgoblin. Well, the hobgoblin hideously failed his saving throw. I think he got a natural 1. And so what I said was, the hobgoblin seems to find the whole absurdity of the whole situation funny and drops to the ground laughing. Well, this causes the goblins to panic. Their hobgoblin is their boss. He's the smartest among them, and he's also a priest of Shar, with a +1 mace just like before. And The goblins don't seem to like the fact that their leader of this little pact just went down, and the fact that their brute is in melee with the back line of the party and not doing well. So the hobgoblin and the bugbear stay and fight it out, and the goblin runs away. The two goblins run away, one to their, I guess that's their left, so that would be one to the west and one to the north. And I said it's the north. One of the players speaks Goblin, and it's Sean, the bronze dragonborn cleric. And Sean speaks Goblin. So Sean has been taunting the bugbear and Goblin every single turn. Sean makes an attack on the bugbear. And so since Sean speaks Goblin, and I said, yeah, as you hear the goblins running away, you hear them saying, yeah, they're going for reinforcements. Help. And they're saying, we've got to tell the others. So the players know that there's more to the story here, and that just because there's monsters here to kill, there's still more to come. So the players decide that it's the end of the night. They fought their fight, and they're going to set up camp for the night. So they decide that they're going to go a little while away, be safe about it, and start watches. The players decided that the first person to stop watch would be Lickhart, the gold dragonborn paladin. Lickhart's watch goes by without much occurrence, and I noticed told him it starts raining. The next player comes up, and it's Sean. Sean makes a guidance saving throw, a guidance cantrip on his perception check, and gets a 15. And the same thing happens. The rain continues, and there's not much to see. Some of the wildlife starts to come out. Next up is Kraka, the warlock. No, next up is Kraka, the warlock. Next up is... Who was next? Kakra, no. Sean, no. Kurt. I want to say it was Kurt. Next up was Kurt. And Kurt rolled the same thing with thanks to guidance that Sean did. So I told Kurt, as rain keeps going, thunder starts to appear in the distance, and you see it rustling in the leaves of the trees above you. Kurt says, I'm going to throw a rock at it. So Kurt makes an attack roll, 4. So I said that the rock hits the trunk of the tree, and the squirrel shaking the leaves, making that rustling sound, comes out from the edge of the trunk of the tree, looks down at you with disdain, and runs away back up the tree, away from you. And that was the end of the thing. The last watch was Kakra's, and Kakra's watch went off without a hitch. I didn't plan for there to be any hitch. I just wanted them to feel like something might happen if they didn't roll well. But I wanted them to feel like they rolled well, so nothing bad happened to them. So at the end of the watch, Kakra decides that he wants the rest of the players to roll a d20, which is weird to me because that's usually my job to have the players roll d20s. Nonetheless, it was for a fun little thing. So Kakra decided that because Kakra is a warlock with awakened mind, is a great old one warlock, Kakra decides that he's going to play at weird dreams in the minds of whoever rolls the lowest. And it so happened that it was Liggart. So Liggart gets weird dreams as Kakra whispers things telepathically into Liggart's mind as Liggart is sleeping. And that's it. The night goes by without a thing. Told them we'll pick it up there next time. They're planning on playing Tuesday again. It's Sunday now, and yeah, it seems like they're gonna get to a natural stopping place. Hopefully, get the level 1 characters to level 2, and then head back to town for the next adventure, so they can play with other people the next time. I'm hoping that the next session that they play, that they get to discover more about these goblinoid followers of Shar, and possibly run into more things. My angle so far has been to throw random stuff at them in the form of rolling on narration tables, DM narration tables, and seeing what comes up and weaving it into a narrative somehow. The bonfire from a mass grave of humanoids with tusks in their lower jaws, what jaws they are, with thick skulls. The players is deduced to be trolls. I intended to be orcs, but I'm not going to argue with the players. Instead, I'm going to let the players think that it's trolls, unless they have reason to think otherwise. Because if the players think that it's trolls, and I tell them it's not trolls, they're going to think, well, we're being railroaded. But if the players think that it's trolls, and I let them think that it's trolls until I show them it's orcs, they'll think, oh, we're idiots. It was orcs all along. So I'm hoping that next time I get to tie everything up in a cohesive manner, in a way that satisfies the players and makes it feel like I planned the whole thing from the start, when really, I was just improvising the whole time. I was just pulling things out of the table and rolling things when I needed to roll them. When the players asked for what was the name of these other dragon tribes, when they asked about the gold and the bronze, they asked what other kinds of dragons are good and evil. And so I told them that red, white, and blue dragons are good. Platinum, gold, silver, and copper dragons, all good. Bronze, brass, black, green, all evil. And so I told them. So they started asking about these other tribes, and I told them they're out to the west. And that further out, that they control more of the west, that's more land that's further west, and that here closer to the city, the Blue Kobold tribe takes care of the people nearby. And they asked what was the name of the Dragon King, because I told them, because they learned from Sir Reginald Quinton Watson that the Azur's blue kobolds have a dragon queen, and her name is Shrinalax. And the Shrinalax had hatched and gone away, and she'd given Sir Reginald and Shannon a gift, which was defense against breath weapons. They have resistance to all attacks from breath weapons, meaning kobolds, dragonborns, dragons, other types of people, and that's the end of that. But when the players hear that there's a dragon queen for the blue dragons, they hear there's other dragon fights, they want to know what the other dragons are. And I didn't know that. I hadn't made that up yet. I had the idea that red, white, and blue dragons are good in my world, and that some metallic dragons are bad. But other than that, I hadn't really determined too much. So when they asked me what are the names of them, I drew a blank. So I did what any good DM does. I rolled for it. So I rolled on a table naming chart, and I decided that since this is a dragon's name, it wouldn't sound like a human's name. I rolled up a name and added a dragon sounding end to it, Elfaraz. Elfaraz, the Bronze Dragon King. I rolled a percentile dice, and it was 50 or less. It was male. 50, 51 or more, it was female, and it rolled a 30 something. So it was a male. It was a Dragon King. So I decided that when they asked about the gold dragons, I decided that since what was a king, this one would be a dragon queen and alternate. So the gold queen, I rolled her name as Suzarex, and I thought that was a good dragon name, Suzarex. And the players thought that was interesting. At the end of the session, I asked them what they thought. The players thought that was interesting, that the kobolds had a whole thing going on that they could learn about, but that I didn't force on them. And I thought that was really cool. They also liked that during the session, they got to do whatever it is they wanted. They got to fight what they wanted, they got to kind of what they wanted, and they were generally pleased with the results of the evening. No real danger was had, they got to have an interesting adventure and see interesting things, and they got to explore a world that they didn't know anything about. At the end of the session, we all talked about railroading DMs versus story-heavy games versus this type of game. And we all came to the conclusion that this is more fun when it's the kind of thing that players are in control of. It's more fun for the DM, it's more fun for the players. What we decided to do going forward was to look at it instead of DM versus player, is look at it player versus world with DM facilitating. In this way, I hope to be a DM who encourages players to win, helps them find things that they enjoy about the game, and in general, facilitates their good time. I don't want it to be me versus the players. I don't want it to be the players having a good time at the expense of me. And I don't want it to be me having a good time at the expense of my players. I want my players to feel like this is a world that is not made for them, but is a world that they can make themselves in. I want them to feel like this is a world where they have agency, where their choices matter, where their choices affect things. I want them to feel like they have power in this world to change things, because this is the Wildlands, and no mortal foot has set here for 200 years. The kingdom that fell here some 200 years ago self-destructed and left a wildlands of undiscoverable imaginations. And there's a lot of land out there to explore. It could take years to map out the whole thing. And my intention is to just be a game that anyone can play in, New World, Level 1 starting out, base class, PHB. We even talked a little bit at the end of the session about what it means to make a character with homebrew options and player handbook options. The players seem to understand. Well, the players seem to accept it because I'm the DM. I make the rules about what makes a character and what doesn't. And I've decided that in this campaign, I'm going to allow player handbook only options with a point buy and a free feed at the start of character creation. I think that's fair enough. I also have a custom system to allow rewards for when they work on the map or work on a write-up. In this campaign, it's a West Marcher style campaign. So the buy-in for the players is that while they get to map everything out, the work is also on them. As a reward for that, I've decided that I'm going to award them a special offer. So I've just drafted up these cool options with the help of some of my DM friends to help hammer them out and figure out good options. And I've come up with a list that players seem like the options of. I told them that in addition to DM inspiration, whenever they role play, which they've been doing in chat, which is making me hugely proud, in addition to DM inspiration for role play, they can also get surges of inspiration for working on the map, doing write-ups of their sessions. And this gets them either a use that you can use it as DM inspiration, or they can use it for a reuse of one of the class features, or a cool boon for what they do based on what their level is. And the players think that aspect is pretty cool. And what we talked about in character creation versus player handbook versus homebrew was that this is the type of game that's meant to be available for anyone. And if I set a new player in front of an option of here's 25 races, pick one. Here's 14, 15 classes, plus a multitude of homebrew options, pick one, they're going to freeze and they're going to quit and never come back to D&D. And that's not what I want. Since my goal is to be an author, my audience will be everyone. As a DM, my audience becomes everyone I can get to play the game with me, and so the option doesn't become make everyone at the table happy, it becomes get as many people at the table as I can and see what sticks. So with options like that, the players seem a bit, while they accept that I as the DM, I make the rules about what kind of characters they can and can't have on my campaign, they seem to understand the reasoning behind that once I explained that it's for new players. They're not new players and they don't need those kinds of restrictions, but it's because if I let them do it, I have to let everyone do it. And if I let everyone do it, it ruins the point of the game. So the players seem to understand that a lot better once I took the time to explain my reasoning on that. This was not something I felt like I had to do. This was something I felt like I wanted them to understand. I wanted the players that played with me for the first time today, by the way, most of them were the first time they had played with me, even talked with me personally, outside of texts and DMs. I want them to understand what kind of DM I am. I'm not an adversarial DM. I'm not a DM who takes joy in killing their player characters. I'm also not a DM who takes joy in just throwing fluff at them to see them killed. I do enjoy it when players win, but I don't enjoy just throwing things at them for the sake of throwing things at them. If I wanted to do that, I would play some other type of game. I feel like what they fight should matter, and it should matter what they fight. I tend to think that players enjoy that type of game more, but time will tell. This is a new project I'm working on doing here. I'm working on a new philosophy in DMing. I've come to the realization that I think most people play D&D for a power fantasy. There are some people who are tactical war gamers who come to the game to fulfill a tactical niche fantasy that they could get anywhere, but they choose to get it here where they can role play. But I think most people come to D&D because they've seen Critical Role, because they've seen any other type of D&D show, and they want to get in on the fun. I think most people, the fun for them is getting to play something cool they don't get to be in real life. They could be a normal, boring human any day of the week. They already do. I think the fun for them is coming to a game where they can be a dragonborn. They can be a tiefling. They can be a dwarf or an elf. Or they can be a human, but with cool powers. And they come to this game and they get to be something that they're not in real life, which is powerful. Most people live their day-to-day lives and never have anything remotely resembling real power. I think most people are fine with that. I do think they enjoy, from time to time, the fantasy of having power. For example, the players tonight talked a lot about killing things and looting them. They did that because it's fun to kill things. It's fun to loot things. But I think the reason that it's fun is because it gives a feeling that they're more powerful than someone out there. They're more powerful than something out there. There's something out there, someone out there that they can conquer, especially things that they decide are evil and don't need to be there. That's up to the players. That's not for me as the DM to decide. What I do is plant what's in there out in the world that's believable, that I think would make a good story or a cohesive narrative. Plant it there and let the players do with it what they will. The players decide what kind of story they want to make with it. I wanted to be very clear that this was a player-driven campaign at the end of the night. I wanted the players to understand that when I put these things in front of them, they can do what they want with them. It's not up to me to decide what they should do. The converse, it's not up to me if they have fun. It's up to them if they have fun. With this kind of campaign, if they have a plan for what they want to do and they execute it, they have fun. If they don't have a plan and they just go willy-nilly and do whatever they want, they might or might not have fun. If they have fun, great. If they don't have fun, that's not my fault. I did what I promised to do. I gave them a world to play in. I let them make a character in it. I ran for them whenever they wanted to. And at the end of it, if they didn't have fun, it wasn't because of anything that I did. I want players to have fun playing characters in my world. But I don't want that to come at the expense of my sanity. And I also don't want it to come at the expense of other players' sanity. If there's a toxic influence in the game, I want to sweep it out and remove it. In short, I think tonight was a fairly successful session. I think I learned the value of improv versus preparation. Had I had a bit more time to prepare, I would have had a battle map ready, because I did think about an encounter I wanted them to have. It would have been fairly easy to draft up a map, import it, size it, make it work. But because I didn't have any time to prepare, due to other factors I won't go into now, it wound up being improvised. I wound up having to draw a rough battle map out on white paper. But the players didn't seem to mind that, but I minded it. I would have much liked to have had a map in place. Just switch over to say, hey, this is ready. I also didn't like that it took me a long time to get the combat tracker set up. It took me a long time, not because I wasn't familiar with it, but just because of the rigmarole about it. It also took me a long time to get character tokens set up. I had to search them up in Roll20, find something that seemed like fit, drag it over, assign it to them. And at the end of what's all that, I had to get them turn order. Then I had to do the same thing with the monsters. I had to bring the monsters out, give them a turn order, set them up. So the whole thing took a little while. I think it added about 30 minutes onto the session all in all. which is not something I want to do going forward. If I have an encounter in mind, I think in the future, I'll just have them roll for it, and if they roll on a survival check, then they get the encounter. I also did something today that I think I might want to rethink, look over. I had the players work together on a skill challenge to navigate the wilderness, and I did that because I didn't know what else to do, and I also kind of wanted to see what I could make happen based on the skill challenge. And what I told them was this: was I wanted them to decide what kind of skills they were going to use, and from there, roll and see what they got. I didn't set any DCs on these rolls. I didn't set any kind of restrictions on them. I just wanted them to roll and see how good a result they got. So Reginald rolled a survival skill. He got 14. So I rolled that, well, he was generally able to keep the party on track. He knew where he was going, and was even able to spot some of the flowers he wanted for his potions. Previously, Sir Reginald had dropped by a potions vendor and asked to see what he could do by getting a discount. The potion vendor said, if you can bring me these 4 ingredients for a potion, I'll give you a 50% discount on the potion. Well, Sir Reginald liked the sound of that, so he started looking for these things out in the wild. Turns out you can find these things out in the wilderness if you look for them, but since the wilderness has been cloned off for 200 years, things have become a little rare. But they've learned that if they search for them, they find them. This is because I'm a DM who rewards in player buy-in and player initiative. And since these players take the initiative to do something, I reward it. I say, yes, you're looking for that? That's where it is. You found it. Congratulations. And I said, with a roll of 14, that's 4 of the thing, 2 points for every flower you find 2 flowers. I think that was pretty fair, pretty reasonable response. So he found 2 of the flowers, call them heart flowers. They're red flowers that seem to pulse like a throbbing heart, like a beating heart. So we call them heart flowers, and only grow up high up on the trees, but away from the sun in the shade, from direct sunlight. And so they found 2 of them. Ligard rolled an athletics check for 21, and he asked, "Can I use this to move things out of our way?" And I said, "Sure, you can." I tried to think of something more interesting or cool that he could lean upon. And it was that idea I realized I really need to be asking the players what they wanted to do with these skill checks. I realized that I wasn't asking them what was their intention with these skill checks. I was trying to narrate things that I thought were cool based on what they got. But that's not the point of this campaign. The point of this campaign is not for me to ask them to roll dice and then give them a reward for rolling dice. The point of this campaign is for me to ask them to do things and then reward them for doing things. So I realized that halfway through the thing and changed my tactics. So I went back to the beginning and I said, "Sir Reginald, what do you plan to do with that?" And that's when he said, "I'm looking for heart flowers." I went to Ligard. I said, "You got a 21 on this. It's pretty good. What would you like to do with it?" So he said, "Well, if there's anything in our way, I'd like to move it out." And I said, "Yeah, it's pretty thick brush over here. You can cut through it machete style and cut your way through. It takes a lot of strength, so I think that's what you do." There's also a point where you cross a chasm that really couldn't have been crossed any other way. It would have taken you a long time to get around it, but because you had the ability to push a dead tree log over onto it, made a makeshift bridge, crossed on over on your way, saved you a lot of time. Once Sir Reginald had said he was going to search for heart flowers, Ligard added on to it, "Yeah, can I go ahead and climb up with an athletics check?" And I said, "Yeah, we'll roll that into your 21. The 21's really good." So I said, "Yeah, you slip right up and you're able to get the heart flower, help get the heart flower for him." Sean, the cleric, the bronze dragonborn cleric, asked to roll a knowledge check for nature. Or asked to roll an insight check for intuition, and he rolled an 18. So his female character, I said, "Yeah, you feel like the experience that you had winning the Kobold Chieftain's Pride as a bronze dragonborn gave you experience as a character." At this point, the players asked me about experience. How does experience work? And I explained that I used the 3 pillars model. Since this game is meant to reward player initiative and player buy-in, and so it rewards players for XP for doing anything relevant to them, discovering new places, going to things, swaying important NPCs over to their side, anything of the like. And so that's why I explained that Sean got XP for that, got experience for that, not experience points for that, got experience for that as a way of explaining that that's what the reward for that was. They asked me if I'm going to tell them incrementally, or if I'm going to tell them, or if I keep track of that behind the screen. I told them I'll tell them incrementally at the end of the session how much XP they got. I didn't do that tonight. Well, I think that's because the assumption was the session would continue on Tuesday night and finish it up and see what the players could do. It was a bit rough going everything started tonight, but overall, I feel like it went fairly well, for as good as it could have been. Sean, the Gold Dragonborn cleric, wanted to roll an insight check. So along with that thing I said about the Blue Kobold tribes, I said that, yeah, you feel like you're on the right track. This makes sense. Your party is going the right direction. Because I asked Sean, is this a thing you're asking for guidance from your deity? Is this a thing you're just intellectually pondering? And Sean just said something, what do I think about it? So I told Sean, here's what I think you think about it. Kurt has to make a nature check as part of the skill challenge. So Kurt's nature check was an 11. 11 is decent, not too bad, not too terrible. If DC was anything, it would have been 10. So anything over 10 gets better results. So 11 is passable, it's feasible. I think with that, I think they actually identified more mushrooms. And at this point, play stopped for a moment because they wanted to identify the mushrooms. So they found 7 mushrooms. Again, 7 seems to be my number for mushrooms, in which they decided that Kakra, the human warlock, wanted one of the poisonous mushrooms. Other mushrooms, I didn't want too many of them to be too useful. The players have shown an interest in using mushrooms in cooking. That's something I tend to try to reward, is whatever the players want to do in the game, let them do it. Reward them for doing it. I even plan to give the players who are interested in cooking a Haver's handy spice pouch. But I didn't feel like that would be feasible to have on the monsters that displayed at the end of the last session, so I didn't do it. But it's in there. It's in the plans. It's in the books. It'll happen sometime. I promise. Kurt asked to make a nature check. And when the nature check was 11, I said, it's possible, it's decent. You kind of know what you're doing. You're able to identify some things going on, and this is good country. I probably could have done better than that, but Kurt seemed to be more than satisfied with getting anything helping along. At this point, I was starting to realize I was running out of steam. I didn't know where this was headed, and I didn't know what to do about it. But here's the thing. I don't think the players picked up on that. I don't think the players thought that I was just winging it. I think the players thought I had a reason for asking these things, and I think the players thought that I had set imaginary DCs, even though I told them I don't really have DCs for this, and they decided that when they rolled higher than this, they succeeded on them. I don't think the players noticed that when I said that, I don't think the players noticed that I felt like I didn't have any kind of plan for this, any kind of options for what I'm doing. I was just doing what seemed like a good idea to do. I was trying something new. If I'm going to do this kind of thing in the future, the only thing I'll add to it is I don't think I'll make it part of normal overland travel, at least not short distances travel. I did have them roll a d12 every hour. I feel like that might have become tedious without anything other interesting, so that's why I added the extra ambience and sights and encounters into the mix. It did create a somewhat interesting scene because as the forest shifted, the light changed at times. They did open up and allow them to see smoke. And the interesting thing was when the dice rolled smoke, the dice also rolled. Well, I think I also just made up that, yes, when you see smoke, the thing opens up. Because later, I also rolled again the dense canopy of trees up over top. And so I said, well, it closes back up, and as you keep walking, there's more covering, and you can't see it anymore. I don't think the players thought that there was. I think the players thought there was a rhyme or reason to it. I seem to have picked up on the fact tonight. The players are assigning meaning to things that don't have any meaning, and that's the trick of this campaign. I can put things in front of the players that don't mean anything. They're not part of anything. I didn't play anything for them, but because the players think that this is part of a thing that I have invented a whole cloth for them just to run into, that's what's going to happen. But that's a lie. It's a trick. It's deceit. I'm just winging it. Most of the time when I'm playing this game, running this campaign with these players, I'm just making it up as I go, and it seems to work out so far. Maybe that'll change as the players level up and get higher levels, but I don't think so. I think the appeal of this game is not knowing what's out there. Once they know what's out there, they can rely upon it. Anytime they're going someplace they haven't gone before, I can make it up, because they don't have a map, because they're making the map. And when they're making the map, they can make it whatever they want. And initially, no matter how I say it, the players interpret it. And the way the players interpret it, that's the way they make their map. The beautiful thing about this is they can't be wrong because I'm not going to correct them. I'm not getting involved in the map. One of the points of conversation today before the game began was, is this correct? Can you give me some advice on this? And I said, no, I'm not putting my hands in any of that. That's your map. I have a map that I use to determine what's where and what goes where. And I do. That's true. I do have that. It helps me decide what's where. But in general, I'm not using any kind of map to say, here's what should be here and here's what should be here. Here's what I think is probably inappropriate for a party that might be this level. This is what's going to be there. The players seem to accept that. I also finished up before last time we played a treasure map. One of the hooks of this campaign is that they're the first adventurers to come through in a long time, save for one group that was shortly here that didn't come back. So I made up a treasure map. The treasure map had drawings, basic drawings. I'm not a very good artist. Basic drawings of structures and things like towers, dens for monsters, that kind of thing on it. And in the spaces between, I wrote that the previous adventurers wrote notes on it for what they didn't do. When I made the map, I thought about, well, the players aren't going to have any reason to go here if the places have already been explored and looted. So I gave the previous adventuring party, the one that disappeared and never came back, reasons not to go adventuring in the places that were on the treasure map. Places like the Cockroach's Den. I feel like a 5-player party would have easily been able to take on a Cockroach's with no problem. But because I made it a part of the previous map's history, there's a story to it. And now that there's a story to it, there's more to learn. And hopefully, as things go on, I can continue to fulfill that. But in case it's not, it's there anyway. It's just part of the narrative. It's part of the setting, part of what makes the player characters in this campaign special. They're special because they're the first adventurers to come through in this town for several hundred years, in living memory, in fact. I wanted it to be this way to give the characters a basic buy-in. Every character who starts in this game is going to be a low-level adventurer starting at an adventuring guild for a faraway town with the promise of whatever they want. The only hook is that they can't go back to where it's safe. They have to go exploring. For the most part, players seem to have really been intrigued by this idea. When I put this game up on RPG Table Finder, people jumped all over it. They loved it. They loved the idea. I've gotten requests every day. In fact, I have 4 sitting there now I need to answer and get messages to right now. In the Discord, we currently have about 12 players who have been active posting, making characters, talking about things, generally having a good time discussing what they want to do in the game. And that's something I want for Fontera. I want this to be an active setting. I want there to be multiple players who can say, oh, I can't play tonight, and for someone else to be able to play tonight. So wherever someone wants to play, they can find someone to play with who's probably going to be appropriate level to play with them. Perhaps as levels go on and more people get high levels and they go through more content and they explore more of the world, more of these things will need to be planned out. But for right now, it's very easy to improvise. It creates a good bedrock, allows the players to shape the story. If the players are looking for something, I say, sure, you find it. Because I don't see any point in putting this kind of thing in front of the players and then denying them what they're looking for. I might make them go through a hoop or two before they get it so that they feel like it was earned, but I'm not in the business of putting things there just for the sake of, putting them there. I'm not in the business for not putting things there just because they want it to be there. I want there to be something interesting about it. The example of today of the cleric who didn't want to speak to them, who wanted to speak to them, the paladin who didn't want anything to do with them. But because I knew that going in, I wanted the kobolds to have the opposite response. It's because I didn't want the situation to play out the way the players expected it would. I wanted it to play out in a believable way, in a way that they could understand. I feel like if I flip the script on them, they would understand it enough to go, oh, it's this way, and inspect. And sure enough, they did. The players investigated why the kobolds responded this way to a different kind of dragonborn. The kobold chieftain got to explain why the kobolds trust different types of dragons. I also got to explain the different kinds of kobolds go to different types of dragons in my world. Meaning, no matter where they go, they might find adventures for level 1 characters, which is great for me. Overall, I'm pretty proud of the way things turned out tonight, especially with the roleplay. The players really liked the voices I gave to Jeeves, Sir Reginald's companion, basically using him as a servant or butler. They really liked the kobold tribe. They really liked the honor of the kobold tribe and the way they value combat above all else. One of the things that I used to accentuate this honor, basically tiny Klingons, was the continuous thumping of the chest. Whenever he means something, I had Aaron on thump his chest with emphasis. It was just a way of showing he meant what he said, but also a way of showing he's very macho, very masculine. Even though he's a short character, he still has his identity rooted in who he is and who can affect the world. And even though he's been bested twice in combat, I didn't want his tribe to abandon him. It's because his tribe is allied with humans and is so beginning to take on human traits, such as loyalty. So I wanted the kobold tribe to start showing loyalty to the humans. So I said that the kobold tribe would defend the human lands against the other kobolds, particularly the gold kobold, the bronze kobolds. And in general, the players at the end of the session said they really liked that, really believed that there was a cohesive world out there, that there was more out there than what they were seeing. They really liked that there was something that they could explore and intervene, and they really liked that there was things I didn't throw at them just for the sake of throwing at them. Overall, I think the players enjoyed tonight. There were a couple players who sat in on tonight's session who couldn't actually play, whose characters, for some reason or other, couldn't justify to be there, which is part of against the point of Fontera, but perhaps with time that'll be remedied. One of the things I'm thinking about is making these sessions self-contained, episodic, so that at the end of an adventure, players can go back to the town, they can pick it back up the next time they can play with whoever they want to play with, and not have to feel like they can't play with whoever they want to play with, because there's going to be lots of people playing this game at any time. Only me as one DM. Over time, I may find the need that as more and more players come on board the ship, I may need more DMs to help me run the game. I don't know. Only time will tell. I only hope it can be that successful. I only hope it will take that well. There's always a hitch in the giddy up. Well, friends, that's the first session that I'm documenting in this campaign diary. Tuesday, they're going to play again, pick it up from where they left off, and hopefully get a cohesive end to that. Hopefully, I'll make a video about what that adventure was like for them, what the experience was like for them, and I'll be able to look back on it with experience and learning. Be able to learn from my experiences and players' experiences. Till then, see you later.